We can turn this on first. Can you stand right here for a second? I just want to see. Just stand right there. I just want to make sure we get the speaker in frame. So stand right here. Okay. I hope so. Somehow I thought we had more. Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. Hello, good morning.
How are you?
Good.
How you doing?
Not bad. Good.
Is it 9:45? No, it's 10. Just feels.
10.
Is it, we're about 10 minutes behind schedule.
We're on kind of after the next session. Would it be okay if we loaded up our slides just
I
in a
hope
tab
so.
of
Yeah,
Chrome?
please, go ahead.
Thanks. Just to make sure that, visible.
Are you going to use this computer?
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
I will give you a warning that it's right to left Hebrew. But as long as,
Yes, I was like, this will be
What
the
if it's a
challenge.
Google Doc or
Yeah,
something? I think once you load Google Slides or whatever, it works fine, but just be aware that some right to left things might take precedent.
Thanks.
I think they just rebooted it. Let me start there.
You know that try to work the natural way, right?
Hey,
Hi,
Michael.
guys, how are you?
How you doing?
Yesterday or you are here since
3 days.
Ah, good.
Yeah, the whole.
I could
whole
afford
thing.
it. I'm moving house and my wife threatened me if I was going to miss also this weekend.
Is that right?
So I arrived yesterday
You don't
evening.
want
No, and unfortunately I have to leave. I have a 4 o'clock another flight because there is this DCHE meeting group tomorrow in Luxembourg, so I have to fly there tonight.
Yeah, I'm leaving
So
at
unfortunately-
lunchtime too.
Okay.
I have 2 o'clock flight,
Yeah.
so
Oh wow,
thinking, yeah, I might just take a taxi.
it's right on. Yeah, I will do also. I booked a taxi half past 12. Now I'm flying with Elal back. Elal is really also it takes a bit more checking at the end.
Yeah.
So
How long do you think it takes to get from here to?
it'll be like 40 minutes.
All right. Would we pick up the cab from the
I would suggest you that. Suggest you that. You can go also by. Oh, go on, go on.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Go ahead.
How it works? Can we project from our own?
There's just an HDMI cable there, so I think you should be able to if you want to project from your own computer. Okay.
Marco?
Yeah.
This lady would also like to place her file just for later. But your file is more urgent. I mean, you get your thing.
Yes, put it in that way, that way, that way. It's always the. That's not four. No, but it's the other side.
Oh, no, I think we use these.
Yeah. Nice purse.
Thanks. I just got it.
I work very hard with this one. That's Super Grover.
Super Grover.
I don't know what to mean. I don't care Super Grover.
I'm Grover. But we know you're cute. Yeah, the weather. I'm absolutely channeling cuteness all over. All right, cuteness crisis averted. Theoretically, but you just started. What? It's 10 away. Yeah, we need guidance from the organizers.
Can you finish? Yeah. Shall I use a microphone?
Yes.
Okay. Next question is public school. Maybe I should. Safratova. I would like to talk about why GLAMs need us. And I also would like to know if you want. Yeah. Okay. So I would also like to know if there are any representatives of the GLAM institutions here, staff members of the GLAM institutions. Welcome. Everybody else is Wikipedians, Wikimedians, right? Cool. So I will try to be very, very quick. I am going to tell you about an example in Ukraine about the cooperation between Wikimedia Ukraine and GLAM institution, the library. I'm also going to tell you that I'm not a native speaker, so I'm very sorry if I'm going to make any mistakes. Please bear with me. So, State Library on Construction and Architecture has been working on a bibliographic index, 25 volumes of small towns in Ukraine since 2008. Meanwhile, Wikimedia Ukraine has been working on organizing photo contest Wiki Loves Monuments. And for those of you who don't know it, it's a photo contest around cultural heritage since 2012. And we already had 200,000 images uploaded of 30,000 monuments. The library needed pictures for their books, and they didn't have resources to send a photographer to all those cities, towns. And Ukraine, okay, and Ukraine is not a small country. It's the largest country entirely in Europe, and it's also the 46th largest country in the world. One of the jury members of Wiki Loves Monuments contest at some point, local lore expert, advised the library that there is some contest. He was part of the jury member. That there is something going on, and there are pictures. You can get them probably. So the library decided to go to Wikipedia Commons to check the site they were referred to. And they didn't understand how they are supposed to use it. Like, they just came to the site and they were like, okay, what are we supposed to do with it? Like, there is no way. So they gave up and decided to go to a Wikipedia page about the town they were looking for. At least they were able to find links to, again, commons, but to a category. And then also there were some pictures in the article itself. And we, everywhere, if you want to find Wikipedia, you can find that in order to use an image, you just need to mention the authors, mention the license, and give a link. And it's kind of difficult to do because the first thing you see when you click on the image is media viewer. It's not very clear that it's the author codex. And it's not very clear that this is a license if you don't know anything about Creative Commons. And you just don't know how to give a link to it. Even if you manage to click the more details, you would go here and then like, author, codex, really? And we can have all other weird stuff there. And then this is probably licensing, but how are we supposed to mention this licensing in a printed book? Like, just how we are supposed to use it? And this is a link you are getting from a Cyrillic file if you just want to use it. Like, in a printed book, and this is a very short one, in a printed book, it's going to take, I don't know, half of your page, a whole page. So they decided to give up again, and they tried to seek help, and they came up to us. But it's not that much easier for us. We are just a bunch of volunteers organizing a photo contest. It's not as if we are tech experts, we are not media viewer developers, we are just volunteers. And not all pictures are categorized meaningfully. If you want to find something, it doesn't mean that you are going to find it even if you are a Wikipedian. And there is just no easy way to get pictures from all, like, relating to one town, because we have like 80,000 monuments in our lists, and we have 600 pages you need to look up in order to find some information. But we still know somebody who knows somebody, or probably we have a technical volunteer who can help. And we also know how to read a commons file description. We also can get the name of the author, we can get the license, and we can create a short URL for a file. So we have created a gallery for them of images from the towns they wanted to see. So they were able to choose. And we also wrote a small script for them after they chose an image. We were able to create these short URLs for them to use. And this is the image, how it's used, how it's looked in a media viewer. And that's how it looks in a book. And they were able to use 1,000 images, around 1,000 images from a contest Wikimedia Ukraine has been organizing for 6 years. And I can tell you that for people submitting pictures and for people organizing the contest, it's very important to see that your work is used, that somebody cared, that you actually helped somebody to get something from 50 million images. And I have some questions. To those of you who are Wikipedians, or even not Wikipedians, have you ever felt that the site you're working on is not welcoming for non-Wikipedians? Anyone want to share a story or a good example?
Well, I think you made quite a good example. So.
Thank you. And what if, and why, if anything, do we need to change in order for us to be more welcoming and for us to be viewed as somebody who wants people to visit the small town or country? Have you ever traveled to another country with a language you don't know, like you don't speak? And do you know how important it is to be able to find the information or even signs? And if there are no signs, like at all, or if there are signs in the language you just don't speak, it's very frustrating. So this is the feeling people get, and those of you who are from GLAM institutions probably can understand and can relate more, that it's really difficult and, I don't know, feeling like, yeah, we are not welcome here. And any other examples of GLAM needing us as translators, as helpers, as, I don't know, tourist guides in the Wikimedia world?
Yeah, I can give a good example, actually. I think everyone can hear. When we started Wiki Loves Monuments, in Europe, it's very common to have lists organized by the country. We actually didn't. And it was to actually participate in Wiki Loves Monument, we had to basically create, in collaboration with these GLAMs, that had parts of it on paper, typed by, I'm serious, like something from the 80s, typed by hand on a machine. And these were the sources that we got, and this became the first Wiki Loves Monuments open lists in Israel, which served to the whole contest. So this was reused in so many different ways, and then expanded, and then more GLAMs contributed to these lists. So that's another example of how we helped the general public get some information from GLAMs and actually make sure that they can use and reuse the material.
Thank you. Other examples?
I don't have a very specific example, but I think for the reason you were mentioning, the fact that especially user interface and user experience in the site not exactly super when you want to reuse the content especially. So I'm referring more to Wikipedia than Wikipedia itself. Wikipedia I think is fine, but for Wikimedia, yes, it's a bit hard to get in touch with. I think in this case you provide much better service to Wikidata. So I think that all the information that are underlined is a bit hostile user interface can be still very good for machine. So you are doing a very well job for in kind of machine readable format. It's not so human readable. That's the problem. But I think, I mean, if in GLAMs start using more machine readable format and reuse this information in their own system and website, also for normalization of data, I think this is a super service that you are doing actually now. So, I mean, you can do everything. I understand that it's not so easy, and you were asking what we need to change. I think it's a huge task to redesign the.
Throw it and rebuild it.
Well, I don't know if you have to throw it, but I mean, it's not an easy thing, and I don't know if it's worth to invest something in a thing that instead should go towards machine readable sharing of machine readable information, or linking open data in a sense.
Other examples?
So an entirely different perspective from Sweden, where we have those huge lists of heritage sites. I mean, we have over 100,000 items, which ends up on this on Wikipedia. And since 2012, we have been tracking WikiLab monuments. And last year, we were on a campaign that let's take pictures of heritage sites which do not have a picture at all. Not in our database and not on WikiLab monuments since before. So we can actually benefit from having opened up many years ago and actually measuring this. And we're actually using it to enchant our own site, for example, showing images from Wikimedia Commons where we as a government agency does not have it. So it's a different perspective. We have a different
we have
situation.
to do it as well.
Yeah,
These
but-
days, I mean, the last two times we used the same examples, but yeah.
yeah, we have different ways to doing it from the beginning, and it's
Yeah.
just pointing to the possibilities in general that you can actually use it to create more knowledge as you GLAM, and in fact that this is something that we as GLAM drive. So
Okay.
I'm from Wikimedia Nederland. And we also noticed that if grant partners are interested in donating content or organizing a writing event, that sort of almost everything is changed, is strange and sort of confusing for them. And we realized very quickly that we, as a chapter, we can't change the project, and we also don't have enough staff and resources to help everyone who comes to us. So we decided, okay, we're going to shift sort of the focus of our work a bit from helping individual partners to providing resources online. How do you do this? What are the basic steps if you want to upload content? What do you have to think of if you want to organize a writing event? And also giving training courses. So still there are a lot of questions, but we hope that this helps more.
There was one more example, right?
Thank you. Just a quick example from Africa. In South Africa, in the Western Cape, the province where Cape Town is, the Western Cape Heritage Authority, or whatever it's called, the state authority for heritage, was super happy to cooperate with Wikimedia South Africa on WikiLab's monuments, because they said, we have a list of monuments, and there are monuments on this list that none of our staff has been able to physically visit for 12 years. We literally don't know if it still exists. We don't know what shape it's in. We don't know if it needs repairs, if it's a safety hazard. Like, we literally haven't seen it in 12 years. And, you know, with the Western Cape is huge, travel is not so easy to some of those places. And of course they are underfunded, and, you know, like everywhere else. So they were super happy to help and cooperate with Wikipedians who were happy to go and take pictures literally for the heritage people to be able to see that the monument still exists and what shape it's in. So just another example of how they were really helped by our project.
Thank you. We are actually running out of time. I mean, we are already late. So my example and my talk can be left at that. And I would like us to also think about how we as Wikipedians do our service and how GLAM institutions, I mean, from GLAM institutions, it would be really welcome feedback. Wikipedians sometimes just do not understand that this might be confusing. Everything is there in the file description, like just go and get it, but it doesn't work that way. So thank you very much and enjoy the conference.
Kind of nice to sit there and, that was thank you.
You catch me in the break for one.
Yes.
So it doesn't really.
Yes. You can also catch me
Yeah.
after my work.
Yeah, left.
You have a work. Then I know where you are at least.
Yes. Yes.
Really good.
Great.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I'm Andrea Wallace. I have with me Douglas McCarthy. We're here to present on intellectual property, which I know is everyone's favorite subject. But we've been doing, we've been working on a survey that we're going to discuss today. That's about trying to figure out what the breadth of openness is around the world for the types of collections that can be accessed and reused by the general public. So we're going to talk to you specifically about the survey and kind of go into the details about the research that we've been doing about these different collections. It's important to also clarify what we mean by open access because there's a lot of different definitions that are used within the sector about what open can mean. We're going to go into detail about the scope, method, and the structure because I think it's important to understand that there's not a lot of common denominators around the practices of what institutions are doing. But this has led to some really interesting visualizations and insights from getting all this information together. And then we'd also like to discuss with all of you what some of the next steps could be. And we're going to be passing back and forth.
Thanks. So some basic information about the survey. This survey, which is linked here, and I posted linked to our slides and the survey on Telegram and also on Twitter just now, so feel free to access, reuse, remix everything you see. The survey examines how GLAMs make open access data. Now that could be digital surrogates, digital objects, metadata or text available for reuse. Andrea and I started this project in March 2018, so it's about 6 months later. And it's very much an informal and a crowdsourced initiative. It's mostly us on Twitter annoying people and asking them for information. People dive into the Google Sheet to make comments, tell us what we've missed, things that are not quite right. So please remember this is a personal research project. It's not owned by anyone, it's not funded by anyone. It's just Andrea and I kind of pursuing our passion for Open GLAM and diving into the details. It's an ongoing piece of work and it's growing. So when we started back in March, Andrea and I kind of did a personal brain dump and we came up with 30 or 35-ish GLAMs who are on the list. And I'm happy to say that as of today, we have over 370 GLAMs around the world who are listed in the survey.
So this is a picture of me with the triplets. It's my PhD that I just submitted in September, and they're pretty thick. But I cracked up when I saw that Doug picked this picture for me, because I think it's this was a sleep-deprived, very special image that I'm glad to share with you all here. But I'm at the University of Exeter. I'm a lecturer, but my path, I started as an artist and went to art school before I went to law school. And all of my research is on copyright and cultural heritage, cultural content, to make sure that we can kind of broadly disseminate that and make that available for people for reuse.
I'm an art historian by background, And in the last 20 years, I've worked in national museums, running image licensing programs, digitization, partnership programs with commercial and not-for-profit companies. I've also worked for private art collections. I've managed film archives. So I've dived into lots of parts of our sector. And right now I'm working as a collections manager at Europeana in The Hague since almost 3 years.
So we started this survey because actually we got an email from someone, Simon Tanner, who said, I'm looking for really good examples of institutions that are using CC0 and how they're implementing that. And we were kind of trying to like scrape together the information. We're like, oh yeah, is it this institution or is it that? Because he was trying to convince someone at a higher level that CC0 might be the way for him to go with the company and needed specific instances. So we started to think we should actually make a list of all of this. I think our initial list again had, I'm not sure how many, but as we were putting this list together, and this is something that a lot of our individual research is about, we started to notice that there was a big information gap and a lack of consensus about what qualified as open. So a lot of institutions were putting themselves forward and saying, oh yes, we have an open collection, everything's available online, and you can license it here, right? So all rights reserved, but we're open because we have our content on the internet for people to view. As opposed to the complete other side of the spectrum, which is it's open, it's public domain, you can reuse it, you can download or remix it. And we also noticed that there was like no shared place to see and add relevant data to this list. There's a few different blog posts that do their own types of aggregation for these lists that have been really useful. But we wanted to promote some global voices all in one place for all of the people who are taking those steps, whether they're small or whether they're large. So whether it's people that are releasing a very small collection of works as open data and the policy hasn't yet shifted, or whether as a whole the institution had adopted an open policy. And we thought that that would be useful for a breadth of people. So for us as researchers, for people who are tracking developments, also for users as a point of access to figure out what types of collections were available for open and commercial use, but also for institutions that are looking how to make that transition and what other people are doing.
So let's go into the details of how we're defining open access. So we followed the Open Knowledge International's open definition, which is linked here, that can be summarized in one simple sentence. Open means anyone can freely access, use, modify, and share for any purpose. And this definition lists a number of conforming licenses which fit with this definition, and Andrea can talk you through those.
So those licenses are obviously the public domain mark, but then we also have CC0, which is the disclaimer of copyright. CC BY, which is still a claim of copyright, but is requesting attribution. CC BY SA, which is just a share-alike version of the previous one. But then there's a really interesting category of kind of self-designated licenses. So these are actually WIKI referred to the OASC, which is what the Met had previously been using for the open access scholarly content. But we have a number of institutions that either adopt no known copyright, which is actually a rights statement. It's not necessarily a legal assertion that there is no copyright in this object. It's more of a, we haven't found a copyright, so therefore we're making this available with that knowledge. Maybe do your own research as well. But equivalent, so some institutions are also no known copyright restrictions, not necessarily within that group, but something that they're designing on their own. So again, the survey covers data that GLAMs make available on their websites or external platforms. So we've looked at GitHub, Europeana, the German Digital Library, or Wikimedia Commons. Kind of the common denominator for this list was the fact that the institution needed to make the digital surrogates, so the actual image available, as open. And then we went to look at the data, because that is the bigger first step that a lot of institutions are taking. But this means that any in-copyright material is out of scope for the survey. And there are interesting examples of institutions making available content that would be in copyright as CC BY, like Auckland Museum or Newcastle Libraries. The images that they take of their space or people within it are making available CC BY, but we decided not to put that in there because we're really just looking at the content that should be in the public domain. We also, open access, so the open access data that's available, so no NC or ND licenses. Again, we talked about this yesterday, it has to be CC0 for Wikidata. but trying to make sure that people who wanted to use it for other purposes are also able to do that.
So as I mentioned, we've been gathering this data to grow the survey informally, mostly on Twitter, but also by contacting friends, colleagues, our network around the world, from culture ministry representatives to GLAM enthusiasts who are in the wiki space, to help us kind of dive into, particularly outside of North America and Western Europe, to find kind of local examples of open, because we believe that it's very important to give credit, actually, visibility to those instances of open access. The survey data is published in the Google Sheet that's linked here, and it's comments only, so feel free to leave your thoughts, comments, suggestions. We very much welcome those. You can do that directly. Of course, you can reach out to Andrea and I on Twitter, and our handles are linked here for you. So let's take a look at the structure of the survey briefly. It's a growing sheet, and it's sorted alphabetically by country and then by institution. So we begin with Argentina. And what we try to do is to capture of course, the location, the institution name, and also its Wikidata entity, if that is available, and it mostly is. And we've also added in the best web URL for the institution itself.
So then, again, we're reading this left to right, we couldn't fit it all on one screen. The next column is the open access scope. So we've designed this to look at whether it's all eligible data, so that means if the content would be public domain, released as public domain, and the institution has adopted it as a policy decision, so they've taken that on for any of the eligible data within the institution itself. And then we also have some eligible data, so that means the institution hasn't made that policy shift, but they are releasing specific collections as open. So maybe taking those first steps toward a policy shift, but not quite there yet. Then we get to the right statements and licenses. So again, this is the statement that the cultural institution has put forward for the digital surrogates of public domain objects. And for those institutions that have something like free and unrestricted access, which is the individual license that they've developed, we try to list what the equivalent license would be if they're using a non-standard. But then we also have the metadata column, if it's stated, because not everyone is making their metadata available, and then the best link to the online policy. So something that is a bit confusing about this area is, and this is one of the things that I love and find fascinating in my own research, is how contradictory all of these statements really can be. So the user might try to go to the policy to find this, and that information may not be there. And we've gone ahead and dropped that in because that's the policy that's on there. So if you go and you click around and you notice that the policy isn't necessarily saying what the page says it does, that's because we've gotten this information from the institution itself. And then to continue on, we're also picking up specifically where the data and related resources might be. So whether that's available through a GitHub repository account or elsewhere, it's listed in the data sources, as well as whether the API has been published. And again, that could be through Europeana or directly on the institution's website or on GitHub. And there's a lot of gaps in the survey, but it was really tricky to sort out some of these core data points that we could kind of code GLAM practices around the world, which I'll elaborate on in a minute.
So one of the nice things about having data in Google Sheet is that you can do really easily some nice visualizations of the information. So I just put up a couple of examples here playing around with the sheet. So this is like a heat map, although it's green, maybe it's my Irish heritage coming through, of open access in different countries and different territories around the globe. And of course it's also possible to make that, to zoom in really, kind of make it continental. So we can see here in South America a relative heat map for open access, and this is the volume of institutions within each country who have released some open data or all the open data. And of course if we look at Europe, we can see similarly where open practice for digital collections is greater in concentration than elsewhere.
And I just put together, based on the data, some really interesting pie charts. So we thought we would show you some of the visualizations about what this data is telling us. So the majority of GLAMs are using public domain designation, and so it's just over 50%. Then we have CC BY and CC BY SA at just over 15% each, and then about 10% using CC0. And again, that open license category refers to the institutionally developed unique license types or no known copyright. There's about a 50-50 split in the survey, with 46% of GLAMs making all eligible data openly available as a matter of policy. And of course, this is institutional data, like at an institutional level, so it doesn't actually reflect the amount of content that's available online, and especially within the collection. So we're currently exploring how we might start capturing that. Oh, sorry, let me know. We're currently exploring how we might start capturing that data so we can give a more meaningful picture about how much content is openly available in the aggregate. So for example, with Museums Victoria, they have 55,000 digital surrogates of eligible collections, which are made available as CC BY, with 36,000 available as public domain. So there's a split in how the content is treated. But then when you get to something like the Victoria and Albert Museum, and I'm told that we have Marco to thank for this sliver of open data, the museum itself has a huge collection, but only a tiny portion of it is CC BY licensed, and that's because they've been working with Europeana to release a specific collection. So this is kind of a loophole about how institutions can get onto this list that might kind of skew the information or the data about the trends and the ways that institutions are making things available. All right, so the V&A, so the majority of the content is made available through their institution, through the Search the Collections website. And they make it available through a non-commercial license. It's pretty decent quality. It requires the user to create an account and then confirm upon download that the image is going to be used for non-commercial use only, which excludes a lot of academic use. It's a publication of no more than 4,000 copies or 5 years digital use. It can't be used as a lead image in a book jacket or homepage, no larger than A5 or 768 pixels on the longest side. And then you have to use the Copyright Victoria and Albert Museum London notification intact with the use. So we have a lot of very specific individual institutions licenses that are kind of controlling the way that this information is reused.
So a couple of numbers, a big picture for the survey. We can see that right now there are about 293 GLAMs that have a stated license for their metadata, so that's helpful. But however, 65 of the GLAMs listed lack Wikidata entities, so I think that's something that in our community we can quite quickly remedy and look to fix together. 45 of the GLAMs listed have GitHubs available, and around 200 of them make their data accessible either through the Europeana APIs or through the German Digital Library APIs.
So coming back to the gaps in practices and how this relates to an institutional policy, again, the online policy links to the most relevant rights policy in the terms of use information that the GLAMs make available on their websites when that is available. So sometimes this information is in the page that is called copyright. Sometimes it's in the page that's called terms of use of the website. It can be anywhere that might not be the most intuitive place for a user who's trying to find this information. But there's often conflicting information and policies that are generic or not relevant to specific content or drafted in really dense legalese in different parts of the website as well. So, when we're thinking about how to make users aware of these policies, I think this is a big part of the advocacy that we should really be pushing as part of the GLAM Wiki sector, about how cultural institutions can make it either clearer to Wiki users or to the general public that this content is available for these types of uses. On the flip side of that, if an institution does has an amazing policy like the Met, it should be something that's kind of a point of bragging contention. It should be carried around and waved like a flag, because again, it can be a great example for other institutions that are looking to make this transition and how it's going to be implemented.
So some recommended reading best practice in this area, I think, is the work that Kelly Fitzpatrick has been doing, and her work is writing is linked here in the slides, about communicating reuse, open access in the digital space. I think Loic touched on this morning, that open access or even the public domain are not necessarily terms that users can understand and really relate to. So I think we need to be quite thoughtful about how we present this information and let people know what they can or can't do with your data.
So what's next? Well, we want the survey to be as big and large in scope as possible, both with the amount of institutions that are included, but also the meaningful data that we can collect about them. So this was kind of a concern for ours, for putting all this information in one place, so we could start to think about what other people are doing, who should be on this list that we're missing, how can we find and track good examples, and what type of data would be useful for other people and other users. Since we're going through all of this work, what can we be doing to make it useful for other people for other purposes? So we have our thoughts on this and about what's next, which Doug is going to talk about. Hopefully that's going to include a more detailed version of the survey, but we'd also like to hear from you. And in the meantime, we'll continue to update the list and add GLAMs as they qualify.
So our next step for the survey towards a 2.1 release would seem to be using Wikidata as a spine, as a way of structuring the information in the survey. And we've already started talking about this with some very smart people in the Wikidata world, some of whom are in this room. Hi, Alex. So what we see the potential of is using Wikidata to generate some amazing queries and visualizations and to really interrogate the information that's in the survey, which goes way beyond what Google Sheets can do. And we also feel that this information shouldn't really be sitting on my Google Drive. It should be in a more permanent and stable place that is truly open access for all of us. So on that note, we'd like to say thank you very much for coming and listening to us. And if we have time before the coffee break, we'd love to hear your questions and comments. So thank you.
So as you, Douglas, is aware of, Europeana is currently pushing licensing towards the national aggregators, that we should work together with the institution even more. So we are actually on a national level doing exactly this right now. And I was wondering how we can help you and how we can take our data that we are currently having in spreadsheets and how we can combine it with your work.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Thank you. I think the step there really is just communicating with each other. I know that's quite hard to scale when there are kind of mostly two of us working on it and such a huge community, including yourself, out there. So if you become aware of any changes that are relevant to data that's covered by the survey, please just like ping me on Twitter, ping Andrea. We're really happy to work with you to update the survey information. And there are some very cool people who have made copies of our survey structure and then made local or national versions of it and then pinged them to us, and we've incorporated that into it. So it's very much a partnership and a shared piece of work. We appreciate everyone's enthusiasm. Any other questions? Marco?
Probably we can take this offline, but probably this is a chance also to give some ideas to the others here. Regarding what he just said about the collaboration, let's say, with national aggregators, you know that we have established the aggregator forum, the European Aggregator Forum, so which is a forum of now more than 34 national domain and thematic aggregators in Europe. Do you think it would be, I mean, I know that it started as informal, but I think it's very good work, so we can kind of adopt it. And do you think it would be good to basically forward this kind of survey to our national aggregator that are already registered in our forum, and also the main thematic aggregator to gather more granular information? It's something that would scale, you think, or?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things that I think Andrew and I have noticed already is that just in publishing this in one place, it kind of holds up a mirror to policy and practice. And Andrew went into some detail on the practice things, there's room for improvement. And it's inspired people to contact us and say, hey, you know, there is an open museum locally in Uruguay, for example, like they should be on the sheet. So that's great. So it's almost like a nice positive nudge, hopefully, for more people to come forward. And I think if you felt able and willing to share it with the aggregator forum and your network, which is extensive, then that would be fantastic. And the more people that become aware of it and feel able to contribute and get involved is the better from our perspective.
Yeah, and I think having other people involved in this is really important, because what we were learning as we were going through this is, especially if the website's in a different language, we're not the best person to be going through and finding the copyright policy and trying to interpret it. Even in English, it can be really difficult to understand what the institution is trying to say about which content. So I think it's like we're actually very dependent on other people providing that information for us. So this is why we really wanted to spread the word, so that it's not a skewed English-speaking kind of Western perspective about what is available on the web, that it's more representative of what actually is available.
And you mentioned Simon Tanner at the beginning. Have you gone back to him with your results? Is he supporting, promoting, publishing?
Yes. Yeah, we actually speak with Simon quite frequently, and I've worked with him in the past on a couple of projects. So he has been promoting the list, especially he uses it as a tool to be able to make those really meaningful arguments about what other institutions are doing, and able to point institutions in that direction, because it is a lot of consulting in the sector. So, Simon, I'm assuming, yeah, it's great. And then, did I see a hand? No? Yeah.
I don't know if it's within the scope of your lecture, but one of the problems that I think is very how to discriminate between material that have the institution right and the material that have also additional copyrights. And I think we spoke about it quite a few times in Israel, and we didn't really find a good instrument to define between these two. And that makes everything a little hard to put it as an open access.
Great.
So it is outside the scope of the survey, because we're looking at the underlying object as public domain, and then what the digital surrogate of that object is. But what is really telling about that is how diverse the approaches are, and how confusing they can be, even when we don't have that additional layer of rights to consider, because the practices are just all over the place. So hopefully by shining light on the fact that this is a situation, even when the underlying object doesn't have that additional layer of rights, I think might help us, in my hopes and dreams, take the steps forward to being able to kind of commit to, okay, all right, so let's settle this, let's make sure that we're being clear about that specific layer and how we're approaching that before we then move on to that additional layer, because it is really, really important. And sometimes there's reasons why certain things aren't available that aren't even related to copyright, cultural permissions, all of these issues that need to be more transparent to users, and why they should be maybe treating content differently when it's digital and available. Because just because it's available doesn't mean that you should be using it for a specific purpose. So I think it's a really important conversation to have, and hopefully this is kind of a first step in that direction.
Maybe the last question before coffee.
Well, we speak all the time, so I don't know how this is that. But like I was thinking that you were like listing the GitHub and the websites, and it might be worth to try to differentiate between the websites and the digital repository as it is, because like this is something that we see so with the Latin American part of the survey, like most of the things are actually on Wikimedia Commons, not on the repository of the institution, whatever, or they don't even have one. So it might be worth to like try to figure that out as well.
Yeah, we have a draft list of digital repositories in a draft 2.1 version. So I completely agree. I think we both agree, and we're working on that. We're looking at it and trying to find a way to make it fit the structure and kind of gel with how we constructed the survey so far, because we know that we are missing some digital repositories, I think, for example, for university libraries particularly, that, as you say, don't necessarily have a more user-friendly kind of front end where they present things. It's more like a data dump as part of a bigger group of things. So it's definitely something that we're on the case with. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we'd be very open to suggestions for how to kind of code that data because, you know, between Wikimedia or Flickr or like a smaller just website with, you know, the zipped file with all of the data that you can download directly, we don't want to have multiple columns, you know, for it to kind of like get out of control about all these different types of information. So figuring that out, like we're very open, especially since we're like less on the techie side and more on the law side. So please, like those are very valid comments that we'd be very open to implement. Anyway, okay, let's go have some coffee and some of those awesome chocolate croissants that I can't stop thinking about. Bye.
Thank you.
Hey, it's good.
Oh, my gosh, it's leaving.
Get the 11 o'clock going.
Yeah.
You're from GLAM Museum.
Yeah.
Met you.
I don't know of you. I don't know you.
Nice to meet you again.
No, not this. I mean, some of the stuff that you were.
You're welcome. I love your bag. I'm very jealous of the GLAM colour. It's very cool. You sent me one.
I did, but that was great. So you go on, maybe
so much. No, you have it. I love his work. So
so great to meet you.
thank you. It's amazing. And I hope that someday we will have your data in your account.
Yeah.
We would love it.
Yeah, we will really encourage parents. We'll join right now because it's really great. Yeah.
Fantastic. I look forward to it.
Yeah, we are looking forward to it too. We are dealing with a management system that is dating back to the 80s.
Yes.
Wow. And the kind of name of Color Hoskins would be very happy to.
Yeah,
No, me neither.
looking forward to all kinds of collaboration.
Yeah. Nice to see you again.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you.
Actually, I don't know, I want to just find a way to sort of advertise this back to the institutions that are on the list, because as things from, but they don't know, or are not interested or something. But yeah, have a nice flight back. Don't get stuck too long.
Yeah, it's much, I mean, this is the right way to use it, but no one is using it. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's your, right? Oh, wow. Yeah, but
And we are trying to help. I won't do it trying to help them and put them in trouble.
Oh, but yeah, it's a problem with links, not on PowerPoint. Because if you can make it out of PowerPoint, I think you will just test like it works. Try another one.
Yeah.
So we're just stuck on the one.
Yeah, so I'm dealing with the other one. I'm just finalizing the notes from yesterday's 2-hour session with Larissa.
We are going back now.
And then they
No,
get everyone
you read it wrong.
for revenue streams. I have to frame it because they don't know anything what's happening. So,
Just
I need to provide a bit more framing. I will probably they will get it this week, Wednesday, because tomorrow I'm flying.
So you have just to move, or you do it by hand here, or you just edit the PowerPoint?
Usual suspects.
And not so much, like, and
Ah,
it's slowly
Risk
coming
yeah.
back, like.
Yeah, just,
Yeah. She was frustrated also with the diversification.
But she was probably one of these people, like, we don't see anything, who are just, who are not interested in the whole diversification. And now that we actually start talking about this stuff,
I also think she was interested with a certain agenda, and she kind of already made a point in the steering committee. So her agenda is that
I understand what you're saying, right.
some roles and responsibility idea.
Okay.
Online
Look,
community.
should probably
And she
just,
also this point of taking it so seriously, so she suggested.
or you click on the link, then go back on the comment, you just have to select
I will
this,
come back.
and then you should probably see it. Never?
I also do.
Hey, the guy who said, I suppose, you know.
I was surprised that everybody said yes. in the
Yeah, I
end.
know what you mean. I understand what you mean. Yeah. I understand what you mean.
Well, it's, your group was also quite small.
הבטחתי לעצמי פה איזה 5 פעמים.
Heated discussion in Cape Town.
זה לא בעיה. תעשי דוגמה שנייה. לא, לא,
And also before the
אז התחלת להסביר את זה? התחלת להסביר
So
את
actually,
זה? לא פעיל.
Lukas Metzger, Alice
זה ווינדוס קי.
Philip Kopetsky,
אתה תסביר את הווינדוס.
It was really, really heated discussion. We started to make like a table on the wall.
We just,
Really crazy, and we had decided that, okay, we will just do the initial step, like taking the kind of the best people that we feel are there, but we keep it small, so we actually push the.
Although I think now it will be okay with the link.
yeah, in fact, right. Probably.
But also, what's this? But even if it doesn't work, I'll show you how to make it work. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, it's not a good
No,
thing.
no, you're not.
No, that's not a problem.
Yeah, right, but anyway, it's not
No,
true.
wait. Click window, shift, left.
Yes, yeah.
But it will be not very easy for you. Okay. We share.
Yeah. What is that? That's working. Now you want, yeah. Now it's working. So how you did it?
It was like an option over there.
So how you go back to that?
Here, go here. Go to the right click. Here, right click. Yes. כן, אבל זה, תשמעי לי שנייה.
אני פשוט רוצה לראות רק שיש לי סאונד, לראות שיש לי סאונד בראש שלי, לא. זה למוח שאין מאוס.
תביאי, אני אתן לך פעם. אני מצליח להוציא אותו. יש לך הצחק הזה?
נומר 6.
רוצה כזה? כן. למה לא? יותר נוח פשוט.
כל עוד זה מהיר.
נכון שזה השלב שאני יכולה להיות ממש זקנה ולהגיד כשאני כתבתי את הדוקטורט, נסעתי מספרייה לספרייה כדי לחפש את החומרים.
לא, אני לא רוצה את זה. אודי,
אודי, זה לא קשור אליי. את זה את עושה ככה, אני לא רוצה.
I went to you and I said something.
Okay, so, okay.
That's it.
Yes, that's working. Because you see, when you see here, you see also there. So now it's working for sure. So you just have to remember.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
Where is my computer? I forgot my computer downstairs. No? אני חושב שהיא נראה. אוקיי. אני אשכרה שכחתי.
רק לספור הרצאה, איך לספור?
אני אצלם קצת, כן. את רוצה בטלפון שלך?
לא, לספור כי יש לי טיימר.
There should be a switch on off.
שומעים?
Hi, you are here.
Hi, Dov, how are you?
טוב, אנחנו דיברנו כמה פעמים במייל, פנינה.
נעים מאוד.
מכירים מהכנסים, אבל אני מכירה אותך, אבל...
עכשיו מזהה. כן, זה בסדר. I didn't see him. I was afraid that we
You think Mark is not showing
I've
up?
seen him last week, but twice.
I've seen Susan before.
Twice.
Because we are meeting
In
each other a
Berlin
lot
and
of
in
times.
Amsterdam.
I see you more time you than my wife. This should worry you.
בסדר?
יש אנשים מאחורה? בעיקרון זה אמור להתחיל כבר, לא? שהם אמרו שדוחים קצת.
You need to start, right?
You should start. Yeah, I know. I try to call people in here, so we got to get things going.
Maybe you should call people in.
The other two rooms have started already, so
Oh, really?
yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
And it's also on video, so don't worry if there's only two people here. There's going to be more people coming, and then it's also on video as well. So,
Just start.
do you have slides up already?
Yeah, I will
Okay.
put this and leave it so.
עכשיו זה מושב שלך, נכון? אחר כך, פשוט ב-12 יש לי איזה שיחת פגישה. את יושבת ראש לא שלך?
נראה לי שאנשים רוצים להתמנגל אחרי שהסשנים רצופים.
אני רוצה לשני אנשים שכבר מכירים את התוכנית.
כן. והכל אבל בלייב, לפחות שיש 70,000 אנשים אונליין.
אנחנו הקהל המוזמן.
broadcast over the web.
התחמקת מזה יפה, זה היה צריך להיות הרמת שלך. התחמקת יפה, זה היה צריך להיות שלך. אני גם רואה רק להציג.
אני לא הייתי פה קודם, אני לא מכיר אף אחד.
אתמול הוא דיבר על רעיון, לא יודע אם זה רעיון,
בתור בוויקי קומונס כאילו? אין להם את זה, כנראה שאין להם את זה. מעולה.
זה לכאורה, אני מבין נכון, אני לפתור את בוויקיפדיה.
אם אתה מבחינת זכויות יוצרים...
בוויואר של טריפל האף, אתה מבין מה אני אומר?
זה
כמו אמבל.
כן.
זה כאילו, האימג' נשאר אצלי, אבל הוא מוצג בוויקי.
אבל זה לא לעניין, זה לא היא אמרה שהיא אמרה. בסדר, אבל כולם זרים, תקשיב שנייה, אין לי מושג, כולם זרים, אין לך בעיה. יש תמיד בעיה לארח ישראלים, אני מכירה, תשחררו את זה, ואת רוב וזה. כאילו, אתה מבין, אין לך פה עניין של מה, עניין של להביא של 90% מס, יאללה, חלאס.
מה אתה אומר בנושא של זכויות יוצרים? במקום שאתם תשתפו, שאתם, כאילו שאפשר לקחת מאחרים?
טריפל האף מאפשר בעצם להציג אימג'
ושרת אחר.
ושרת אחר.
כן, בטח.
זאת אומרת, אני לא צריך להעלות את הקבצים עצמם. אלא טריפל האף מושך אותם בתוך הדאטאבייס שלו.
שלך? לא, לא.
הרי.
אתה צריך לעלות לשם פעם אחת ל-archive.org.
למה? לא נכון.
או למישהו.
הרי טריפל האף.
או ל-Wikipedia Commons. טריפל האף זה שרת שיושב, כרגע אצלכם יש שרת כזה אחד. הוא יושב על הדאטאבייס שלכם, שם הוא שואל את ה-raw data, הוא עושה כל מיני טריקים על זה. והוא נותן ללקוחות. כן.
אנחנו עובדים עם ספריות ברחבי העולם.
מעולה.
ניגשים אליהם, מושכים גם את האימג' וגם את הדאטה להצגה בכתב.
בסדר, מעולה. כי להם יש את התמונות וטריפל AF.
נכון.
אבל אתה לא יכול שהתמונות יהיו אצלך, אתה צריך לתת לוויקי קומונס את התמונות.
כמו שהבריטיש לייברי לא נתנו לי את האימג'ים.
נתנו לך טריפל AF.
מציגים את טריפל AF.
נכון, מעולה.
אותו דבר, אני יכול להציג בוויקי.
הבנתי מה שאתה אומר. אתה אומר שהם יהיה להם viewer. שיהיה להם viewer. הם לא יסכימו.
למה?
כי הם לא יסכימו לשים בתוך הדף משהו שהוא לא ברישיון חופשי. הם יכולים לשים לינק אליך.
אתם רוצים להציג את הפרט? לא רוצים להציג.
הם לא יסכימו להציג משהו שהוא לא ברישיון חופשי, בסיבות עקרוניות שלהם. טכנית זה אפשרי לגמרי, אתה צודק. כן, מבחינה טכנית אתה צודק לחלוטין. אם הוא שם טריפל AF קליינט, זה לא בעיה.
הריוויור שלהם, הם יעצבו אותו, יציגו אותו איך שהם רוצים.
כן,
צריך להיות ריוויור שעובד עם טריטוריה.
כן. שיעבדו מולכם, מול כתיב, מול לא יודע, ספריות כזה. יש שום בעיה.
אני עוקף את הבעיה.
לא, אבל הם לא יסכימו מבחינה עקרונית. הם אומרים, מה שנמצא פה אנחנו מציגים על הדף, רק דברים שאנחנו יכולים ב-100% להעתיק, לשכפל וזה. עכשיו, מה שכן אתה יכול לעשות, תעשה קישורים, אין מה לעשות. קישורים חיצוניים. אם את רוצה להתחיל? מה? צריך עזרה?
אני לא מוצא את ה...
כן לזה?
Is your session 11:30? What session are you preparing for right now? Half past 11. Okay. You other folks coming in. Well, I think they have an hour, but we should take some time from them because they don't need an hour. Yeah. And we should give you more time. Yeah. So you should go till it's 11:45. Is that half hour? Yeah. Still half hour. Okay. Good.
קפץ שוב.
Yep. Do you have a microphone? Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
It's working?
Yes.
Okay, so hello everyone, my name is Zainab Shalom, and I'm going to tell you today about the Open GLAM Accelerator I was leading on behalf of the Public Knowledge Workshop. For those of you who are not familiar with the organization, we're talking about a non-profit organization whose mission is to release public information and make it easy for the public to meaningfully engage with the data. Some of the famous projects, for example, is the Open Parliament, basically bringing all the assemblies of the Parliament online, bringing it online. The key to the budget tells us as citizens where does our money go when we pay the taxes. And another famous project is Open Pension that actually tells us where the insurance companies are investing their money. So if I had to sum, I would say that we are working towards transparency together with government authorities. And under this umbrella of or let's say agenda that whatever belongs to the public has the right to know about, comes this program of the Open GLAM Accelerator. And the idea is basically to make cultural assets accessible to the public in the spirit of the Open GLAM. And it started 2 years ago on a very small scale. It was called Classroom. It was working together with the National Library. But this year, the Public Knowledge Workshop decided to open up the program and to invite all GLAM institutions in Israel to participate. So we published a call for papers. We approached about 50 GLAM institutions in Israel. 22 had submitted a proposal, and we chose 5 to participate. And here you can see them here, the National Gallery, the Museum of the Jewish People, the Israel Antiquities Authority, Palace Hanukkah, what were the criteria in which we decided to choose those specific projects? We had 3. First of all, we wanted to make sure that there's enough database. If it was a collection or specific items, we wanted to make sure that there's enough information that we can make it accessible to the public. Second thing was copyrights. Of course, since everything was built in open source, we wanted to make sure they're not going to have any issues with copyrights. And I have to say that this was one of the reasons a lot of the institutions couldn't participate in the program. And the last was we wanted to make sure that we have a content representative from each institution. So whether it was the curator or the archivist, someone from the organization who knew the materials, and he would be our mediator between us and the project. Next step was to recruit developers, UX and UI designers. We had 3 designers in the program and 15 developers. And I have to say to their account that most of these people are volunteers. Some of them were in between jobs, some of them had full-time jobs. And I think we can give much of the credit to them because they really used their own free time and contributed to the program. The next phase was creating 5 working teams for the 5 different projects. So in every team, we wanted to make sure that we had the content representative, we had a designer, and we had developers. And the procedure was basically very similar to PM, product management. So we started by defining what is the goal, what is the purpose, what do we want to achieve, who's the target audience, and we worked together on this process during the whole program. We had about 12 joint meetings together at Google Campus in Tel Aviv, and we had more than 10 meetings afterwards with the developers. Our day started every morning. We had a circle. We actually updated, each team updated what are the challenges for the week and what they want to achieve for the next week. And then we split the developers and designers, worked together with Udi, who's right here, and Yaniv. They were in charge for the tech side of the program. And I was working with the content representatives, and we had different lectures and speakers. We started with Chris Michaels, you can see here, the Chief Digital Officer of the National Library in London, and he shared his experience with us. We had the Liz Kendall, the lawyer, who spoke about copyrights and where does the legal system in Israel stands behind legal rights. So it was, all these lectures were supposed to help the organizations understand the big picture of the project. We had a lecture from Kani Barzilai about art websites for art museums in Israel and how they communicate with audiences. Mishon Zeraviv spoke about website and how do we define it and how can we make it better to communicate with different audiences. Shani Avenstein, probably most of you know her, she was here and she spoke about Wikidata and how we can cooperate with other platforms. We had Dr. Sinai Rossini who spoke about digital humanities, and I spoke about the visitor experience in the digital age and what can you expect with the changes that are going through now in 2 museums and cultural institutions. And I'm missing, Maya Alexander also spoke about marketing, how to market the product and how to create communities online. We also had 4 tours. We went to visit the organization who participated in the program. So you can see on the left side, we went to the Cinematheque in Jerusalem, where they have the film archive, and you can see that they still preserve everything like this on the left. On the right side, the National Library showed us different collections. On the bottom right, the Antiquities Authorities, and we went to visit the Rockefeller Museum, so we saw exactly how they preserved the mosaics. And on the left side, the Jewish Museum with their collection. I think, and I speak for myself, but I saw it on the participants as well. It gave us a sense of responsibility of what we're doing in the program. So basically, we are helping to engage people, other people, with this collection and this content. We finished the program with a hackathon. We had more than 50 volunteers, and we also had a special guest. You can see her on the right, Liz Yona. She was the data director at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and now she's working on a very interesting project in the Netherlands. They are collecting all the information about World War II, and she spoke about her experience working with different archives in order to fulfill that mission. So we have this lecture online, by the way, so if anyone's interested, I can give you a link. So I'll tell you a little bit about the products. I would say that the public knowledge workshop, when we decided to work with the different projects, we said that we are going to do the GLAM institutions an MVP, a minimal viable product that can use them as a proof of concept. Okay, so the idea, those of you who are working to raise funds in your organization, you probably know that it's very difficult to come to someone, right, with an idea or a piece of paper, rather than have a platform which maybe is a better site It's only right at the beginning of an idea, but it makes it much more easier to show the donor or the board, okay, this is my idea and this is what I want to achieve. So it's much easier to see the potential. The idea was that we are giving them the ability to have an MVP. So the source does not belong to the public knowledge workshop, nor to the government institutions, but rather the idea is that everyone can share the platform. And most of the projects are where we can upload it to GitHub, right? Okay, so the first project. The National Library in Israel had a very unique idea for the project. They wanted to make a combination between two different collections. They had over 1,200 Passover Haggadah, the story that is being told in Jewish communities around the world in Passover night, the exile of the Israeli people from Egypt. And more than 100 of them were highly digitized with high resolution and had very unique illustration I'm going to see on the website in a minute. And they wanted to take also another collection of more than 100 Passover songs with their audio archive. And the idea was to find a combination in a project that you can actually scroll through a Haggadah, but also listen to different poems from different communities around the world. So here you can see that the designer was working on a desktop and mobile design. And it was very clear to them that they wanted to make it accessible with mobile as well. And there was a huge debate about scrolling down or up, left side, or right side. But eventually this is the way it looks like. And let's see if we can see the example here on the website. It's an MVP, but it's still working. Okay, so here you can see the different Haggadahs. I'm just going to pick one, the Rothschild Haggadah. And what you see is basically the text of the original Haggadah, on the left side, a text, a readable text, in this case. And if you scroll down, some of the pages have the illustration I was mentioning at the beginning. And if you're interested and you want to know a little bit about the information, you can just click here and you see the name of the painter and have some information about it. And the nicest thing is also listening to different poems, as you can see here. See if it works.
Numero 6. Alahmanya viajaru avakana berabi mitraino con li fingere kullo con li flicoye dell'istaro ashataha lishna berabi ragifel ashatavi lishna berabi nifel benecho inna avadima inu le farobi.
Okay, too long. Basically this is the idea. So we want to give the people who visit the site the ability to scroll down the Haggadah, to read the text, and also to listen to different poems. And in terms of the future, one of the main goals is to, of course, have the website in English as well, because we have a lot of Jewish communities around the world who can use it. Of course, any more information and more Haggadah to the website. Using the actual text, at this example that you saw, we just use the default text, but the Haggadah has many different versions. And so we want to make sure that the actual text that the viewer is seeing will be on the left side and presented. And of course, finding more ways to engage with other audiences during the school. So the last time I was talking to Yaron, he's sitting here, the CEO, and the plan is maybe to upload and launch next Passover, so hopefully it's going to work out. The next project is the Israel Antiquities Authority. They had a photo collection of mosaics from the Hellenistic period until the Muslim period. A collection that was never exposed before to the public, and basically showing the excavation site, so how the mosaic was actually found, how was it renovated, and what's the situation today. And so this is the first time that they wanted to share this information with this project. So what we wanted to do is to create a website that shows all the different mosaic when you scroll down, and you can have some information about this. Here's a peek at the back office of the CMS. We wanted to make sure that they will be able to synchronize between Excel lists that they have and the specific design, just give them a title and a short description. And the idea is that you can see the different mosaics and sites, but you can also have an interactive map that you can see exactly where the mosaic was found in Israel, and you can have more information about it. So let's try to see if you can see the website. Okay, so once you scroll down, you have a few options. You can look at a mosaic, and you can choose between different buildings, whether it's a church, a synagogue, or you can filter it by different subjects. That doesn't work at the moment, but you can actually see where it was found. If we take this example. So you have more pictures from the site itself. You see on the left side there's a black and white, but then they took some more photos and you can see different parts of the mosaic itself. So hopefully they are going to continue and push more information to the project and maybe link it to the new website that they're going to build right now. The Israel Film Archive, the idea of this particular project was to make the Israeli film catalog accessible. We are talking about an archive which is the largest in the Middle East with documented films that were taken in Israel. But today, as visitors, we don't have access to the catalog. So if we want to look for a film or a specific director, we cannot do it. We have to come there physically and use the help of the archivists there. So first of all, we wanted to create something in the spirit of the IMDb, the international website for movies. And so when we approached the design, it was pretty clear that the whole, a very large space of the website will be the bar search, and people can look for different films and names of directors. So if they choose, for instance, a certain film, they have a page, like you see here. But what's special about this project is, if you look on the right side, there's a linkage with Wikidata and other websites. So the idea was that basically we are using the content community with this project. And I know that for a fact that they are now continuing the connection with Wikipedia. And I think it's a very good example of how the community can contribute to this project in terms of knowledge and more information about different films. There's also a possibility to search by a person name. Here's Avi Binyamin, and you can see all the films that he participated in. So for the future, I didn't mention it, but the Israel Film Archive is going through a massive process of digitization. When we went there to visit, we saw that they are actually working on each frame. It was quite amazing to see how they repaired the different frame inch by inch and minute by minute, and fixing the audio files as well. So what they want to achieve is basically to improve the information, and they want to make sure that we'll have the ability to see some of the films online. They want to add pictures to the directors, to the filmmakers, and of course have the ability to reserve online. So if today, like I said, there is no access to the catalog, the idea is that you'll be able to do it back home, and then once you get to the Cinematheque, you'll be able to watch the film that you're looking for. And of course, a largely cooperation with other databases like Wikipedia that I mentioned. The next project, Paldas Hanukkah Core Archive. These are two small settlements in the north side of Israel. What we wanted to achieve with this small project is basically creating a prototype for an online archive of them today. What we saw when we began to work on it, that many small settlements in Israel, the people who are in charge of preserving the history are the elderly people, probably the ones who built the first house or planted the first tree. So they remember everything and they sit in the archive. The majority of them are not computer-oriented, so we wanted to create a generic platform that would be very easy for them to activate in order to preserve the history of the place. So we have built a platform that they can upload pictures and they can add information, whether it's a title, and connect it to the map so people actually see where this picture was taking place. For the future, I think that the idea is that they will be able to add more information, maybe like virtual tours or having historical tours around the small settlement. So this is what we're trying to do here in this project. And the last thing is the Museum of the Jewish People. So what we wanted to create here is an online collection of Judaica and Jewish art items, ethnography and manuscripts. And this is a project that was being done together with the public. I don't know if you had the chance to visit the Museum of the Jewish People, but basically this is a museum that tells the story of different Jewish communities around the world, okay, but they don't have a collection. So in the past years they are going through a major renovation, and they decided that this is the opportunity to start and collect Judaica items. Now the curator told us something very interesting. She said that occasionally she gets letters from families who a loved one has passed away, and they found in between their belongings boxes of different items. They had no idea what those items were, and they just sent it to the museum. And she said, because she works with historians and researchers, that some of the times she found very valuable things in these items, items from Yemen, for example, or other places. And so this is also, I think, gave them an incentive to continue and collect and preserve this legacy. So what we wanted to create is a website that shows you the collection that is being uploaded by the museum, but also by the public itself. And here you can see the difference. On the right side, an item that was uploaded by the museum also shows a map where this item came from to the museum, but also where you can find it at the museum itself, should you try to search for it. And on the left side, the picture that was uploaded by visitors. So we had a joke about this. What did they try to share with us? The air condition or the Hanukkah on top of it? But for this case, of course, it was the Hanukkah. Just joking because I think this was a crucial debate in the program, because we said that obviously we're not going to get very quality pictures from people who are going to upload them, right? There's going to be a difference aesthetically between the two pictures. But I think the museum took a very brave decision here, and they said, if we want to invite people to upload pictures, this is how it's going to look like, and we're fine with it, as long as they share the story. So basically what you see, and I want to show you the process. It's going to be very easy 3 steps just to write your name, and you can give a small description about the item, and then you can just upload the picture. Okay, so the idea is to make it very simple. And if you want to look at the example, so once you walk in the website, you have the opportunity to choose between the museum collection and user collections. And if I go to user collections, I can see all the pictures. Okay. And let's kick this down over here. And here's a story, a teddy bear from Romania, a story that was told by Naomi Zimmerman. And she said that when she was a child and she left to Israel, she went on a boat, and the British soldier threw her teddy bear away to the sea. And 60 years later, she told the story about a relative of her who knew the British ambassador in Israel, and he was very moved by the story, and he decided to give her a teddy bear as a present. So she was, telling this very private story, shared it online, and contributed the teddy bear to the museum. But once you read the story of Naomi Zimmerman, when you scroll down, you see that there are other examples for items that were uploaded by different visitors, but also the buttons of the CTA, the call to action, is very appealing, and like if you want to share the story, you can just do it with 3 clicks that I showed you before. And I think it's a very good example of the fact that they took the idea of the project, and it just went very nicely with their slogan. And the slogan of the museum says that everyone has a part of the story. So I think it's a very good example for this kind of project. For the future, they were talking about adding filter choices, because I think that at the moment it is about Judaica art or other stuff, but if they're going to open it up like this, probably there are going to be much more items, and then they will have to find a way to have more options to filter. And they want to give an opportunity also to upload audio or video files. And you can imagine that if someone doesn't want to write, so they can record themselves on a video or a voice, and then you can listen or see how this specific item was used in the family. And of course, 3D items that today there are different apps that you can do it and upload to the website. This is it. So this is the website of the program, and we're hoping to have funds to continue with this program next year as well. So if you have any ideas, you can contact me in this email. And if you have any questions, Udi is also here, who is responsible for the tech side of the program. So feel free, we still have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to this session. This is quite different in format to some of the other sessions in this conference, in that we are talking about a variety of platforms or projects that are working to collaborate and connect with Europeana. Europeana, for those who are not familiar with, is the European Union Commission funded project to collect and connect cultural heritage for the benefit of European citizens and also the world, because of the variety of cultural heritage available in public collections around the continent. And then there are a variety of ways that material can potentially be added to and accessed in innovative ways. So there are a series of projects and funding calls made available to provide suggestions and projects to build upon the existing Europeana network. And that is what we are demonstrating with 4 different presentations today, the kinds of varieties of independently produced but collaboratively linked projects through that Europeana platform for inspiration and edification. My name is Liam Wyatt, the Europeana Wikimedia Liaison Manager, and I'll be moderating the session on behalf of the 3 presenters here today. First, we have Dolph on Judaica, and well, you can see the slide title yourself.
Thank you. My presentation will deal with the cultural chatbot, but first I will make some background about the Judaica Europeana project. First of all, those people that are signed to the presentation are Pavel Katz. Pavel Katz was until 2 months ago the Chief Technological Officer of Europeana. He is now at the Jewish Historical Museum of Amsterdam and in the Jewish Heritage Network. Alexander Hajinsky is an expert in natural language processing. He is from the company Pangianic, and I myself, I am from the Jewish Heritage Network, Judaica Europeana. A word about Judaica Europeana. It's a project that was written in 2008, it's run in 2010-2011. It aggregates contents from Jewish institutions like the IVO from New York, the Institute for Research of Eastern Europe, Leo Beck about German Jewry, the National Library of Israel, Alliance Israélite Universelle, and many museums. We have 55 partners in Judaica Europeana. Now, now there is a new phase of Judaica Europeana because the European Commission just approved the second phase for it, and it will run from early 2019 until 2020, and it will improve the existing 250,000 digital cultural objects, and we will add to them 450,000. It will also establish an independent aggregation infrastructure. I must stress that in contrast to the first Judaica Europeana project, the present one is very strong in terms of technology, first-class technology people that has much experience with Europeana and in digital libraries are at the core of the present project. And this explains also the fact that one of the proposals that the network developed was approved and is an AI project dealing with establishing a cultural chatbot for Europeana, for cultural heritage in general. The Jewish Historical Museum in Amsterdam is a coordinating partner, responsible for project management, content survey, aggregation, but it is an initiative of this consortium that is called the Jewish Heritage Network. I must stress that one of the things that characterized Judaica Europeana during his life is an interest and an attempt to advance the linked data approach. We have in this conference heard all the time, during all the conference about Wikidata. Wikidata is one of the data sets as part of this cloud. It's interesting and important to stress that Wikipedia has a critical role in developing the linked data cloud because it was the first database that was expressed in RDF and it was published. And today, DBpedia that is the expression of Wikipedia in RDF is the core, is the most central database in this cloud. And inside this cloud, we have something called Judaica Link. Judaica Link is the expression of several Jewish encyclopedias, like the IVO Encyclopedia of Jews of Eastern Europe, the Encyclopedia of Russian Jews, Encyclopedia of Hamburg Jews. Several encyclopedias of interest were published in Judaica Link as linked data, as RDF. And this is expressed in the knowledge graph. The knowledge graph, it takes from Google, it takes information from the linked data cloud, and it offers you when you make a search. Here, Jerusalem is coming from the linked data cloud. Google makes a query in the linked data cloud, and when you ask about Jerusalem, you receive a routine results, and you receive a window with Jerusalem on the side. I asked here Asaf Bartov, what's the relation between Wikidata and DBpedia, and it's not clear for me. They are based on the same set, but they are not the same databases. They are separated different databases in different principles. In any case, it's very applicable. It's a thing that every day you receive it when you make a Google search. Okay. I'm very proud of this small circle there. You see the Judaica link is part of the cloud. Okay, it's not very large. It hasn't 58 million like Wikipedia, but it's still there with many important encyclopedias for those interested in this particular content area. Okay, now about chatbots history. This is representations by Alexander Radzinsky, and I'm using his presentations to make some comments about the chatbot project. Chatbots are artificially intelligent systems that converse with humans using natural language. Where you know about Alisa in the 60s to simulate human conversation for the purpose of entertainment. Today they are very abundant and offer sophisticated services. Chatbots have more practical applications due to the improvements in data text meaning and matching deep learning methods. The main purpose is to increase productivity, and the common domains are question and answer system, personal assistance, e-commerce, and customer support. They save money, they generate leads and revenue for business, they guide users to better outcomes, and provide after-hours support. Several museums, I suggest that you visit such examples if you are interested in museums. They are using chatbots. One example is the Anne Frank Museum in Amsterdam, that is part of Jewish historical, the Jewish cultural quarter that is run by Jewish Historical Museum Amsterdam, where it mainly provides very structured pre-visit information. It's not what the cultural chatbot is supposed to do. It's something very structured, at which times, which tours, which exhibitions, how much to pay, and so on. But there are others that are more interesting in the sense that are more flexible. One of them is in Buenos Aires, Museum of Modern Art, and another one is in São Paulo, the Pinacoteca of São Paulo, where it's a partnership with IBM, where they are using Watson to provide interesting services that are interesting. By the way, I want to stress here, so I do not forget later, I put the presentations in TinyURL. TinyURL, if you write chatbot -TLV, you get the PowerPoint. If you write chatbot -PDF, you get the PDF version. So you can have the links of the presentation in the TinyURL, chatbot TLV, or chatbot PDF. Okay, chatbot anatomy. This is the main driver of Pavel. Pavel was the Chief Technological Officer of Europeana, and one of the things that he has to cope with challenge is about the fact that you have a box to make a search. It is very good when the person making the search knows what he wants. If he knows what he wants, if possible, we'll find it in the database. It's a very large database. Europeana has now 58 million digital cultural objects. So it's a very, very large database that can provide if you know what you want. The problem is that a user comes for inspiration. He doesn't know exactly what he wants. They come for something new. He wants to have some serendipity that can help him in this creative process, or simply for curiosity and so on. And this is the task of the chatbot. The chatbot will be using advanced AI technologies to try to make a conversation and trying to understand what are the interests of a user and trying to find in diverse ways how to fuel them. Main concepts in the development of chatbot are intents, the things you expect users to say, entities, pieces of information you want to extract from messages, like person name, heritage object, type, date, slots, information to keep track during the conversation, templates, strings for the things you bot can say, what the chatbot will reply, utterances, actual bot responses, that are built from templates, and actions, things the bot can say or do. There are several types of chatbots. There are goal-oriented chatbots for any specific goals, like the Anna Frank bot, where there is very structured. You can have a tree and very easily fulfill the needs of information of the users. And there are experience-oriented chatbots that is like a butler that assists the user spend some time in the environment. And they are open-ended bots that let user explore a space through the magic of AI. By technology, there are rule-based chatbots, AI chatbots, and hybrid that combine both worlds. The main components are channels, like Facebook, Slack, Wikipedia, Skype, natural language understanding, this is critical, the conversational flow, and the conversation user interface that provides the personality of the bot, the language, the visual elements, and so on. The channels that will be used are various in the content chatbot that are being developed, like Facebook, Twitter, Skype, and so on. The architecture are the following. There will be harvesting, there is the conversation logic, there is the building of a knowledge graph. So the content partners in the present project are Europeana, Polling, the Museum of Jews of history of the Jews in Poland, Cultura Italia, it's the national aggregator of Italy cultural content, and Jewish Historical Museum Amsterdam, and they will contribute to the knowledge graph. And the knowledge graph will be enriched, what I told you before, with the Judaica link. And this is the matter that most interests me in the project, the fact that finally we will have a Jewish cultural heritage knowledge graph that will be useful not only for the proposals of a chatbot, but for many other proposals. Okay, I think here I finished, and thank you very much.
Slides already. Yes. Okay. Does anyone have any particular questions for the first presenter while we set up the second? God bless actually fly away as well.
Yes, an important phone call. Okay. Hello, everybody. Yeah. I will try to speed up for two reasons. We are 15 minutes late, and I have to catch a taxi at 12 to rush me to the airport because unfortunately I have to leave early today. So thank you very much for having me here. I would like to thank Shani and Liam for kind of facilitating this session in a way. I'm going to present another two projects actually. So I will bore you for like 20 minutes about two other projects that were funded in the same call that Dov presented earlier. So that are providing tools for the European core service infrastructure. The first one, and I'm wearing my first hat, is the Crowd Heritage project. Here I've been involved as European Fashion Heritage Association. I have co-funded with other friends.
and of which I am the managing director. This presentation has been prepared by the project coordinator, which is the Technical University of Athens, so I'm just kind of reporting it. The project just started a month ago, so we don't have some very already assessed kind of result, but I can show you basically what we are talking about. The data quality is one of the top priority of European strategy, and more in general is a kind of great concern for aggregators and control institutions, because the quality of metadata highly affect the findability of resources, and so the reusability of digital resources in European, but not only in general, we can say. Low quality metadata usually frustrate the user experience. This is what we have seen in the European collection portal. And in this context, crowdsourcing of metadata enrichment and validation can offer a great opportunity for improving data quality in a scalable way. Because as you heard before, Europeana now hosts more than 52 million digital objects. Going back to each of them and trying to improve the metadata quality there, it's almost impossible. It doesn't scale. So we decided to try to apply crowd sourcing techniques and see if we will be able to better scale metadata enrichment and validation. So in this project, crowd intelligence and machine intelligence, I will not go into the semantic definition of intelligence. I think we will be stuck there. So just let's take this definition lightly. Can cooperate and improve each other mutually. So it's a kind of win-win thing, because we can use user annotation to training and improve machine learning algorithms. We can use machine learning methods and algorithms to validate user tags or labels. And we can, in this case, this is what we are doing also in this project, design a specific crowdsourcing campaign on specific content that can serve as training cases that will improve performance of automatic machine learning systems. So it's what is called a human in the loop kind of methodology. So it's a methodology in which humans can, in a way, provide information, kind of training information directly in the early beginning of the algorithm definition. But this is going a bit too specific, so I will just leave it like this. You can Google human in the loop approach in machine learning, and you will find some interesting stuff. So what is exactly a crowdsourcing campaign? It's a well-defined period in time when targeted users are encouraged to add or validate specific annotation related to selected cultural heritage metadata in our case. A campaign consists of a theme, basically, a defined set of content of metadata collections. It has a goal, of course, a duration, and it has defined annotation types and process. I will explain this in a while. The project campaigns we are tackling in this project, and we're using as a test case, are coming from the fashion domain, with us as European Fashion Heritage Association coordinating them, music, with the French Ministry of Culture and the Philharmonic in Paris coordinating this kind of campaign, and then we will have also some campaigns on European cities and sports, which are organized by the Michael Association, which is an association which is running the museum aggregator for Europeana. What is an annotation exactly? Well, I can say that basically the definition is an annotation is a note or comment associated with a resource that doesn't modify the resource itself. So it's something that goes together with the standard metadata record. We are using the web annotation model in this project, so we are not reinventing the wheel. We are using a structure and model and format that enables annotation to be shared and reused across different platforms. In brief, an annotation consists of an ID, a list of annotators, a body, a target, and a list of resources. You can see this is a JSON representation also here. I will not go into the technical detail, but anyway, it contains basically the main information about where we are getting this annotation from and what it is about, and of course, what is the target of this annotation, and also when it has been created. This is a bit the workflow that we have in the project. We have first a metadata, in this case, upload, coming from these two platforms, WIKI or directly from Europeana API. So if the content is ready in Europeana, we get it through the Europeana APIs. If it's not, we are using this open source platform to get the metadata in. Then we have a template-based campaign editor, which allows institution, in this case, the Fashion Association or the Ministry of Culture, that are running the campaigns to prepare the template of the campaign. So setting the goal, the duration, the rewards and everything. And then we have the actual annotation activity which takes place during the campaign in the crowdsourcing web spaces. And at the end of the campaign, we export the annotation to the annotation server in Europeana. Yeah, I will not say much about this. This is one of the tools that are part of the project. It's an old tool developed by the National Technical University of Athens. It allows metadata upload through HTTP, FTP, OI, PMH, in XML or CSV serialization. It has also visual mapping editors in which you can get the source metadata and map them to EDM quite easily. And we can use this to get in metadata to be validated or enriched. We also, as a side thing in a way, we are also offering some automatic enrichment tools, like image analysis tools for object identification or dominant color extraction. The last one is quite used in our fashion case. So we are basically analyzing catwalk pictures and costume photos, identifying the silhouette, eliminating skin tones and other thing, and identifying the main colors in the garment. Of course, this is an automatic process that should be validated. And here it comes the crowdsourcing platform. We also use some free text analysis tool, which basically perform NLP, natural language processing, on titles and descriptions. Spotlight, Stanford NLP, so these are kind of standard tools in a way. We also use matching algorithm connected with external thesauri to enrich the content. So through the crowdsourcing web spaces, target user will be able to navigate through selected collection of metadata, cultural records, and add different type of annotation. So they can do semantic tagging, image tagging, color tagging, geo-tagging, for example, or they can just suggest missing metadata value. They will be able also to validate existing annotation by upvoting or downvoting annotation or tags that are already in the metadata record. And the metadata included in the annotation will be then presented along the original metadata in a specific UI that we developed on the European collection course. So this is an example of the mock-up of the color tagging in fashion. So we have a fashion photo, and the user here can just have the result from the automatic enrichment there, the color green and pink, and can just upvote or downvote, or can eventually add a new color and then move to the next item. Here we have an example of another campaign, the semantic tagging that will be done in all the three cases. For fashion, we will extract automatically from description and titles, material techniques and object tags, looking up in the AAT thesaurus. For the micro campaign of sporting and game events, we are extracting game genre and sporting events,
And for music campaigns, we are extracting automatically instruments and composers using the MIMO thesaurus. And here you can see an example of a music record in which users can eventually either validate the already defined instruments or listen to the record and eventually add the instruments itself, looking up in the thesaurus. Geotagging also we have here. Here again, it's quite intuitive. Users can just visualize drop pits to a country or location in the map that is represented in the picture, or that defines where the object in the picture were created. A user can again upload or download or just add a new tag. And in order to make crowdsourcing a kind of engaging experience, because the problem is that these tools can be perfect, but then if you have no user working on them, they are useless. So in order to try to make it more engaging, the user interface, the web space will provide also some kind of gamification element. So we'll have leaderboards, badges that will be reached after specific achievement, and the idea is, of course, to partner with the institution that are providing the content to offer prizes like catalogs or access to exhibition or special visit to the collections. We will also provide metrics and statistical results about the campaign. So we'll have of course, the progress, the contributor count, the annotation count, daily contribution distribution, and the contributors' location. So this will help also both organizers, institutions to understand how the campaign went and to fine-tune also for next events. The campaign editor will offer the possibility for designing ad hoc crowdsourcing campaign, an online campaign. As we said before, it will be possible to define the cultural resources, so the metadata, importing them from European or external sources, or just direct uploading them. You can define the description of the campaign and the objectives, setting the durations, the stakeholders and sponsors. We can also personalize the presentation features like the color themes, the banners, and the type of annotation interaction, and of course also leaderboards and prizes. And with this, I end with this presentation. This URL here is not the project URL, which is still under construction. It's just the alpha version, kind of prototype of what I just described it. So you can go in and eventually create an account and start playing around. There are some data sets in already. And you can just test it. We will at some point come back to GLAMs for actual feedback and testing. But this will happen next year, basically, since we just started now. Okay, and now basically, I mean, there is any question about this presentation?
Just how do you plan to get users on board the website? Is it through Europeana or?
Basically, yeah, we are going to organize campaigns, and the association I mentioned before are in charge of engaging users. We are targeting different kind of users. So for Micro Association, for example, they are targeting schools. So they already have contact with some schools across Europe. They will involve students in the tagging. We are involving some fashion students coming from a couple of schools in Europe. So there are plans for user engagement, specific plans for user engagement, because this is quite the difficult part. The technical part is easy, then engaging users is more difficult.
And what is the time frame of the project?
18 months, so quite short. We should, let's say, having the final platform and also an assessment of the platform by February 2020. Say it correctly? Yeah. 18 months from September.
And will it be open source? Or?
Yeah, it will be on GitHub. Yeah. Okay, so since we are a bit in delay again, I very quickly put my other art, which is.
We have 15 minutes for
the
session.
I will really speed up. So this is another project which is called Europeana Media. Okay. which I'm coordinating as person in charge of the international project Istituto Cinecittà, which is a memory institution in Italy, the oldest memory institution in Italy, a visual memory institution in Italy. So what is about? Some general info. This is again the call we spoken before at the European Generic Service 2017. It started also in September, it will end up in February 2020, and it has a co-funded budget of more than 600,000 euros, 75% funded. So, which is the problem statement? So what we are going eventually to solve with this project? Today, Europeana provides access to more than 1 million videos and more than 700,000 audio recordings. But there are quite a few shortcomings in user experience that hinder audiovisual material to be fully exploited in Europeana and online in general. The first one is that we have different playout services used by content providers. Stemming from this, the current layout experience on Europeana offer usually no additional features that make audiovisual content more appealing and reusable, like, I don't know, subtitles or things like this. And audiovisual content use is often hindered by the lack of clear information about allowed option for reuse. Europeana has a standardized licensing statement, but for audiovisual content is not always enough, because 90% of the visual content in Europeana is labeled as under copyright, in copyright. But user, when say the statement, doesn't know if anyway they can share or embed the content in their blogs or websites. Can they download it for personal use or for use in the classroom? It's not always clear. So we have also to address this issue in a way. This is a bit of an overview of the main content providers in Europeana. INA is one of the biggest, and then there's Uscreen Network, CCMA, which is a Uscreen partner, is a Catalan broadcaster. And then we have also other sources like Vimeo, YouTube, but with smaller numbers. For audio, we have also a kind of similar distribution. The main contributor is Europeana Sound, which is the sound aggregator, and then we have, for example, CREM CNRS, which is a research institution in France, and the British Library also providing quite a few content. This Mark is another aggregator which is not working anymore. What we would like to do? Basically, we would like to develop an enhanced unified playout service for time-based media integrated in the Europeana collection. So we would like this player to go on top of the Europeana collection portal, delivering a set of functionalities that can offer researchers, educators, and everybody the possibility to better access and incorporate audiovisual content in their own workflow. Offering, for example, video fragment quoting, support for subtitling, and embedding media, of course, based on copyright permissions. This is a bit the infrastructure. So we would like to put in a time-based annotation and subtitles through the annotation API in the Europeana Core Service platform, using the Europeana data model, the web annotation data model, and Europeana licensing framework, and then put this out through the Europeana API to, of course, the Europeana collection portal, but also towards online education platform and online research platforms. The partners are this one, Cinecittà, as I say, the Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision in the Netherlands, in Hilversum. IT, which is a Belgian company which is specialized in reuse of audiovisual content in education, and PIB, which is the largest scientific library in Europe, is based in Hanover. Europeana, of course, is a partner, and Notary, which is a company which is doing open source layout solution for media online. Functionalities, I mentioned already some of those, support for different hosting and streaming services, like YouTube, Vimeo, Uscreen, Wikimedia Commons, support for secure playouts, meaning preventing eventually downloads for copyrighted video in case this is a requirement from the provider. Analyze specific use function like the download or the citing embedding based on the right statement of the object. We would like also to support embedding portion of videos, citing media fragments, displaying subtitles and support the managing of them, and also support user annotation, and support for user statistics, so view download citation and so on. Of course, we are also looking at what the others are doing around, so we have a close collaboration and look with the, well, of course, we are basing everything on HTML5, first of all. And then we are looking at W3C, the Media Fragment group. We are in discussion also with the IEEE AV group, which is recently started, kick it off. They have also a kind of a first version of the player. And then we are also looking at the BBC working group Text AV, which is focused on the use of caption and transcripts to facilitate and speed up the production process of visual content. Oh, and that's the end. Thank you very much. If you have some question, this is your last chance, because then I will be on my way to the airport.
How about hosting stuff yourself?
Well, we did this for a subset of content in your screen, about 60,000 clips, and on Amazon infrastructure, on cloud infrastructure. Having it at a European scale, of course it's feasible technically, and it would be better also for user experience and stuff, but it's a bit costly, and it seems the European Foundation cannot sustain this yet. But it's something we are thinking about. So actually we're not doing it on a large scale, just some small experiment. So the 60,000 clips coming from different audiovisual archives in Europe are stored on a single storage on Amazon.
I'm going to steal the microphone from Marco
Yes.
Sarasho, but I want to thank you very much. Marco came specially last night, and he's leaving now to present these two really important projects. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Excellent. That's very
And sorry,
good news.
Susan, if I basically leave you without.
Delighted to see you. And I think it's really good news for Europeana, because you're only going to be improving these servers.
Hopefully.
It's two amazing projects. I'm going to talk about a parallel project under the umbrella of our EBA Minerva meeting, if you like, the European Horizon. And this was specifically a virtual museum project. It is now expanded to be a virtual cultural heritage project from phase 1 to phase 2. So I have, 7 minutes? So I will go as quickly as I can. This is the VIM project, and it's originally about virtual museums, as a virtual museum as a strategic resource for Europe, again with parallel to Europeana. And we're looking at the cultural, social, environmental, and the economic value of cultural heritage, with very broad group of stakeholders in the digital cultural heritage arena. This has become a highly visible project with lots of followers, hundreds, if not thousands of followers, and it affects a lot of companies, but not just European, but globally. The main objectives are looking at the added value of cultural heritage in terms of investment, looking at specifically regional case studies, building a new integrated policy approach to cultural heritage. This is a very ambitious part of the project, and especially this last year, the European Year of Cultural Heritage, we've had many meetings over the year with this goal in mind. And what has come out of this year has been a major, we call it a major result, a VIM manifesto, a roadmap, and an action plan. You can't do anything without an action plan, so we work very hard on that. And there was consultations across the museum cultural heritage sector, including UNESCO, ICOM, ICOMOS, Europa Nostra, Europeana. Everybody's taking a role and coming together around the table to look at, with an emphasis on virtual reality, augmented reality, and as part of the essence of this project. This is the table. Who's joined us here? We meet on a regular basis with all these partners. At the bottom are the official partners of the project, the chapter associations. Meeting Interpol, for example, having meetings with Interpol and looking at what happens with objects that move across the cultural space without unique identifiers, and one of the problems that we've been looking at. The advisory board, I won't go into these details. I'm going to rush through my slides so that you will hear about Vim, and you will know what Vim is, and next time you hear it, you'll know this is something you want to follow in the future. This is a meeting we had last week in Cyprus with Marianos Ioannidis from the Cyprus Technical University. And at the panel, you see a really nice group of people. Elena Fink from the former Getty director looking at standards, Harry from Europeana, Rob Davis, who's running the project, and a host of really good people from UNESCO around the world who are working together to build this new cultural heritage umbrella. So the different, this is rather silly actually, this is Rob's idea, they all begin with D. This is a different way of looking at the thematic areas. I won't even read them because I don't think it was totally appropriate. But my role as the head of the working group, number one, was to create a definition. And that's what I wanted to talk about today with the help of the Wikimedia community. So we worked really hard from this to get this definition, a working definition of what is a virtual museum. So let's start from the end. This is the website of Vim, and this is the definition, which I insist on reading out because we worked so hard to get there. And it's the Vim definition, virtual museum, is defined by the International Council of Museums as a non-profit permanent institution in the service of society and its development, open, etc., etc. Now, where will you find this? You're going to find this clearly on our website, on the Vim website. But probably more important, you're going to find it in Wikipedia. And why is this important? Because if in Wikipedia we maintain our definition as a living, breathing definition, which is accessed by the community and can be edited by the community, we keep the definition very current and very alive. So we extended our goal. Well, I don't need to go through these slides because you'll know what it's like to work on a wiki page and keep going back and making sure it's live and kicking and nobody's re-editing you all the time. So there were revisions, there's a constant consultation, which we have used the platform Wikipedia to get our message out and to help the community as a community read the definition and comment on it. And because we're a community, an international community, our partners, and here's an example of the German Wikipedia virtual museum page. Of course, we have hundreds of pages, and we extend our invitation to anybody running a wiki page in virtual museums to read the definition, and if they wish to refer back to the definition in Vim. And this is a way to grow the community.